Hello, I'm Pastor Dave, and this is your 3-minute sermon recap for Monday, May 2nd, 2022. Here we go. This week we looked at Acts chapter 9, verses 1 through 20. And this is the account of Saul's conversion on the road to Damascus, where he becomes Paul and accepts Christ and Christ's mission to the Gentiles. This is the start of his work for the church instead of against the church. And really, this passage reminds us of the transformative power of Christ in our lives. When we remember this power and recount what happened to Paul, we are reminded that Jesus Christ can convert anyone. If he could convert Saul, anyone can be converted. But sometimes we do forget this, especially when it comes to the worst of the worst. But when we think of these people, it really doesn't matter, because the hardest zealot can be overwhelmed by Christ. From atheists to world leaders, from petty thieves to mass murderers, from the saintly to the most vile, Christ can get to anyone. But what is more important is the role of the church in all of this, because when it comes to Christ, the past is irrelevant in the eyes of God. Because when one comes to Christ, it is different. This is a struggle for the church, because sometimes we forget that we shouldn't be concerned with one's past, but focus on their status with Christ. It was a problem for the church in Damascus, who were very leery of Paul coming in, knowing his reputation. They feared him. But to God, it doesn't matter. Look what God did with Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles. One of the most influential, if not the most influential, second only to Christ within the church. And this is important for us, because this is why the faithful need to remember the transformational nature of the faith. It's easy to forget that people can change, that God can enter one's heart and change them, that Christ can be at work in them. Instead, we're like the older brother in the prodigal son parable, instead of being more like the Father. When we look at the conversion of Paul, we are reminded that the faithful need to welcome those changed by Christ. Regardless of what they did in the past, the church is to embrace them. As the church embraced Paul after all that he had done as a persecutor of the church, we need to embrace those that Christ has changed and let them serve Christ as he has called them to do. Because we could be amazed at the outcome. I don't know why we would be, but we can be amazed at what Christ can do in one's life, especially through his transformative grace. So that's your recap for this week. Remember, we worship Sunday morning at 8:45 at East Salem, 10:15 at Otterbein, and we live stream that East Salem service on the East Salem UMC Facebook page. But until next time, I'm Pastor Dave, and I hope to see you in the pews.